Hari Hari. Krishna. Krishna Chaitanya. Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari. Hari Rama, Ram Ram, Hari Hari. Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Ram Rama, Hari Hari. Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Ram Rama, Hari Hari. Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Ram Rama, Hari Hari. Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Ram Rama, Hari Hari. Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya. Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya. Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya. Srila Prabhupada, so grave and sober. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya. Okay, a couple of things I want to look at. And there's a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And read a little Krishna book. And then one thing that I've been considering is how it appears that there are many devotees hovering on the edges of ISKCON that more or less are declaring war on ISKCON. And in their own way, trying to make their own little groups in opposition to ISKCON management in particular. And there's a lot of anger and passion involved, and a certain amount of ignorance. Not a heck of a whole lot of goodness, but a little smidgen of it in there. So I was thinking about that because I've been keeping association with some of these devotees who, in the name of serving Prabhupada, have declared war on ISKCON. And it doesn't make sense to me to take that stance, because ISKCON is actually Prabhupada. Just like Prabhupada's in his books, he's also in his institution. It's the institutional form of Srila Prabhupada. So, with the books, there's some effort to try to make them new and improved as a service to Prabhupada, which is not very popular with many devotees. Who are you to go in there and make it new and improved? And so there's a big mishmash about that. And also ISKCON, to remain functional, a certain amount of adapting to time, place, and circumstance goes on. And then, so this is a really a big mishmash of opposing forces and a certain amount of war declared amongst the devotees on each other. And Prabhupada said that's the very thing that will actually destroy the devotional movement, is that kind of thing. So how to deal with when some devotees see that, wait a minute, this isn't quite right, because it's very possible devotees make mistakes in their judgment, meaning well, but they may be making a wrong decision in terms of what is actually favorable for Krishna consciousness, for the community, and acting in roles of leadership and authority, and their judgment may be, they may make some sort of a miscalculated judgment for one reason or another. So how do those things get dealt with? Well, one of the ways Prabhupada set up was committees where devotees could discuss intelligently and look for what is the path of truth. Something like the sages at Naimisharanya. They gathered there, where is the path? That was where the Bhagavatam, that's our most recent recitation of the Bhagavatam, was Sutta Goswami speaking to the sages at Naimisharanya, what he heard from Sukadeva Goswami speaking to Parikshit Maharaj, and what Sukadeva Goswami heard directly from his father, Srila Vyasadeva, who compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam. So there's the succession of where this is coming from and how it is transmitted. And looking at ISKCON, Prabhupada set up a similar situation, that it would be committees, something like the sages at Naimisharanya. Kali Yuga, outside Vedic culture style. In other words, transcendental. So these devotees who have declared war on ISKCON are really decrying the very system that has been going on for a very long time, has been set up by Kṛṣṇa himself, and that is what Prabhupada set up in ISKCON. So to declare war against ISKCON is actually declaring war against Prabhupada and Kṛṣṇa. And I was remembering Rupa Goswami, he mentions 3 types of discussions that take place. This is really valuable insight. You sit a group of people down together to discuss a very controversial topic where people have different views. One type of group, it'll be very important to be right. And that's the most important thing, is that they are right. Which means everybody else is wrong. That's one type of discussion, and then they gain control of the group, and then they have power, and see, they were right. And it's like dictatorship. Maybe they're right, but maybe they're wrong at the same time, and we'll see how that can be. And then there's another type of group where you sit everybody down for a controversial issue, and there's a lot of heated discussion that goes on, and it doesn't matter who's right. It's who can speak the loudest, who can just overpower everyone and convince everyone that they're the top dog. And really that's all they'll be, is a dog. It doesn't matter if they're right or not. It's just they're the most powerful one. Now you got another dictatorship. Now there's another type of group, you sit them down together. It's a hot, controversial issue. But they actually want to find the truth in the confusion. Members of that group are actually looking, where is the truth, the actual truth. And we know now it's not just a matter of truth, it's spirit and truth. So that group, they're eligible to enter and actually access the truth because of the spirit of their inquiry. They're inquiring in the spirit of love and devotion and sincere, eager willingness to hear. And in that kind of group, a discussion can take place because the spirit is welcome there. In these other groups, the spirit isn't welcome because someone either has to be right and is pounding away with verses and knowledge and rationality and whatever they can get their hands on, baseball bats, anything it takes to assert their authority over the group. What? Hare Krishna. So, Prabhupada set up ISKCON in a way that it's possible to have that third type of assembly. It's possible. By establishing committees or groups where it's possible. They can sit together, chant together, and then even though everybody's got different ideas about everything, and a lot of it's very heated and very passionate, they can access the actual path. It's possible through the spirit, the loving spirit of devotion. It's possible. That's why Prabhupada said the only thing that will destroy this movement is all this arguing. Who's right and who's more powerful? He said that will destroy what? Access to the truth through the spirit of devotion. It will destroy that. So I see that going on. There are groups, they're not within ISKCON per se. They're on the edges, they've declared war. Declared war on what? On what Prabhupada set up. In the name of serving Prabhupada. How bizarre is that? Because they're very determined to be right. They're the authority on Prabhupada, and Prabhupada doesn't want ISKCON. Hello? Prabhupada wants you? Kṛṣṇa. So that's going on. And I'm appreciative, as awkward and as uncomfortable as it's been to coming close to this, to be able to really see it and by Krishna's mercy get some insight on what it is without having to find fault with anybody, but just to be able to see, like Bhagavad Gita as it is. As it is. That's what it is. Oh, it's a little garbage bag full of dog poop? Oh, that's what it is. Put it over here. So that was one thing that I've been processing, and I think it has a lot to do with why I haven't been able to get up and have had to take a lot of extra sleep because it's very stressful. It's very stressful. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I'm feeling very freed up now of that connection now is broken with those devotees. And I'm feeling so much better. But I had to see it. I had to get some insight into it. What that was. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa. Now, some of us are probably like that, We have to go through it in order to realize it, and then we might not even realize it. And might have to go through it again and again and again until, oh, wait a minute, been here before. Oh, that's what that is. 20 years later. Oh well. Hare Krishna. I take shelter of the Aesop's fable. Slow and steady wins the race. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Maybe my name should have been Kurmadasi instead of Matsya, Meena Devi Dasi. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So, another thing I was thinking of in terms of, hey, Mr. Sushil Mehta, Hare Krishna, was like, you know, I met Prabhupada in 1967, and then it took a few years of exposures here and there to devotees chanting Hare Krishna and hearing songs like Govindam on the radio and things like that for me to get up the motivation to go and visit the temple. And when I did, I never left. You know, I just stayed there. And so I served within ISKCON for quite a few years, just like being in the army. You get up, you know, and then you do, you know, it's like being in the army, and you do your service, and you're not really socializing with anyone. You're a student, and you're working really hard, 24 hours a day, cleaning floors, ringing bells, cooking food, hearing lectures, studying class. It's really nice, you know, for student life. It's really nice to, you know, to go through that. It's really good training. And going out on the street and chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, and then you want a book, here's a book, you know, and then coming back to the temple and having popcorn and then going to sleep and starting the whole thing all over the next day. And, you know, you have to have a young body to do that. A young, healthy body to do that. Hare Krishna. So serving within this, as student within the structure. And then it reaches a point where you don't just remain a student like that. Because you're getting too old, like, you know, 35, 40 years old, and you're still doing, you know, what the Gurukul does, you know. So you're expected some different, more responsibilities in different ways because you're in a different stage of life. Especially for the ladies. Most of the girls just got married, and then, you know, some of them found good husbands and some of them didn't, but that was the stage of life. Some of the girls were suitable for marriage and some of them weren't. I mean, it's Kali Yuga. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. But within that, there were devotees who were more closely serving Srila Prabhupada and the deities with direct personal service. There were devotees who were washing Prabhupada's clothes, cooking his meals, massaging his body, running errands for him personally, directly. His personal servants, personal bodyguard. No one should, you know, try to get close to Prabhupada and hurt Prabhupada. He had, you know, he was surrounded by personal servants within the, he was the general, he was the commander-in-chief of the ISKCON army, and he had personal servants. And devotees that had direct service to him, maybe not like his physical body, but they were in charge of different departments, like the book distribution department or the art department, and he would meet with them directly at different times, and they would have a lot of association with him, and they had that strong sense of serving him personally. I wasn't one of those devotees. I was there, and I was watering Tulsi Devi, I was in the kirtans, I was cutting vegetables in the kitchen, I was going on traveling sankirtan, distributing his books, but it wasn't like a direct personal. I felt connected, and I felt like I was serving him and ISKCON like that. So I had that sense of, but it wasn't like I came in close. You know? A lot of devotees did come in close. I didn't come in close. So it makes sense to me now that I'm not like directly involved in all of the ISKCON activities, which are, now that Prabhupada had disappeared, is actually Prabhupada's body, his institutional body. Even when he was here and I was serving within ISKCON, I wasn't like in close. I was kind of like on the outer limits. So it makes sense that the ISKCON is there and I'm here. It's like I don't feel any different. I'm still serving Prabhupada, just like I was then. Mostly through his books, reading his books and hearing from Prabhupada. But not so much engaged in, like, you know, washing his clothes and cooking his meals, and not so much in deity worship. Washing their clothes. Well, you don't wash the deity's clothes, but making their clothes and cooking their meals. Not so much. Not so much. I was mostly hearing and chanting and relishing the messages of Godhead and appreciating the other devotee services. Appreciating how nicely everyone was serving. But that wasn't like my service. So not much has changed. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So I was just trying to understand, you know, looking at ISKCON and also having association with devotees who have declared war against ISKCON. That may be coming from being a little bit of sour grapes too, that they didn't get some position within ISKCON. You know, you have a lot of controlling issues, a lot of control. So, looking at that, and so it was kind of ISKCON focused this morning. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada, ISKCON, like that. Krishna. But not much has changed for me, because Prabhupada's in his books, and even when he was on the planet, I wasn't like serving him directly, washing his clothes, like that. Or I didn't have any special project from Prabhupada. It was just chant Hare Krishna, go home, avoid sinful activity, go home. The avoiding sinful activity, at first, it's a real struggle because we're very conditioned. And the slightest little temptation, because we're so accustomed to, you know, engaging in sense gratification, it's a real struggle. It's a kind of repressed. You have to repress. Oh, where's Krishna? Oh, it's like a real struggle. But when there's a taste for Krishna, then it's not that kind of a struggle. It doesn't, because there's a higher taste. Believe it or not, you can even resist going out and getting a pizza. It's like, those pizzas are good, and if you get a vegetarian one, it's not so bad, you know. But you don't even want to do that. You don't even want to do this, like, Just eat a handful of peanuts and a banana, offer to Krishna, and you're done. And just chant a little Hare Krishna, and who cares? But even if somebody does succumb to something or other, I was reading the other day that they're still considered saintly because they're trying to serve Krishna. It's not like if there's some little deviation, you know. The problem is when someone develops the system of doing something naughty and then chanting Hare Krishna to counteract it. That's a problem. That can be a problem. In other words, this gives me license for, like, householders run into that problem a lot. They think that marriage is a license for indulgence in sex, sometimes. And that can be a problem. It can certainly slow things down quite a bit. cause a lot of other complications too, like a lot of children you can't support. So you can get in pretty deep when you make that kind of system. Try to make that system, play the system. You're gonna play the system. But if there is some slight, I'm trying, but this is just too much of a strain, and then there's some, like, you just go get a pizza. It's not the end of the world. But even when you do that, if somebody does that, like if I do something like that, it's been a while since I've slipped like that, then the pizza really is like, was it really worth it? It's not all that great. Was that worth it? No. Sometimes you have to go through it and see, well, it really wasn't worth it, was it? No. It's kind of dumb. I mean, it was okay for a few minutes, but ew. Kṛṣṇa. Krishna's kind like that. He still considers the devotee saintly, even if there is some slip. All right. I'm only going to read Kṛṣṇa book, but there's no light in here, so I'm going to turn the light on. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yeah, it's like somebody finds fault. Ultimately, the fault finding will eventually go to the spiritual master and Kṛṣṇa. And I was wondering how that worked, because these devotees that I've been associating with, they find all kinds of faults with ISKCON, and all kinds of faults with any devotee that isn't in their group of maybe 4 or 5, sometimes 6. It's like everybody is wrong. They're the only ones that are right. Everybody else is wrong. And unless they realize how wrong everybody else is, then yes. Hare Kṛṣṇa. I was wondering how that worked, because it's all in the name of Prabhupada. How can it be finding fault with Prabhupada? It's in the name of Prabhupada. And I was thinking, well, do they really, really know Prabhupada? How do they understand Prabhupada? Is he just an old Indian man? Or does he have an institutional form? ISKCON, which they've declared war against. So I think I got some clarity on how they can not accept all of Prabhupada and only a little part of Prabhupada that they can relate to, and everything else of Prabhupada, they don't see how it's Prabhupada. It's like, what is it? The philosophy of half a hen. People do that with the Bhagavad Gita. They pick and choose the parts they like, and they throw the rest away. So, mostly impersonalists do that. So the philosophy of half a hen is, I like the part where the eggs come out, because then I get something. It's fruitive. I get the eggs. But the part that you have to feed is expensive. So let me cut its head off. Let me cut the head off, because that part's expensive to feed, and I'll just keep the other part where the eggs come out. I like this part of Prabhupada, but I don't like that part of Prabhupada. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. It's kind of a good thing that not too many people watch my videos, because this would sure cause a lot of heat. And the other thing is, I feel very free to speak my truth. I feel free to speak, because it's not like a huge crowd out there and, getting ready to tar and feather me and run me out of town on a rail, because they don't watch my videos. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. I have nothing of value to say. Kṛṣṇa, it's very freeing. So, only my dear friends turn up. Hare Kṛṣṇa. I'm lucky to have even one or two, let me tell you. Well-wishers. Saints who can tolerate almost anything. Almost. Hare Kṛṣṇa. In the search for the truth. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. In the spirit. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Okay. Back to the battle between Lord Kṛṣṇa and Bāṇāsura. So where are we? Where we left off last time. This is the time out from a word from our sponsor. Thank you. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Everyone should have a cuckoo clock. I'm convinced of that. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare. If I was in the Senate of the United States, I would propose a bill that provided a cuckoo clock for every family if they couldn't afford one. And I would make it mandatory that every family that could afford one would have to have one. Vote for me. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. And then I would invest in cuckoo clock companies. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Your government at work. So, someone's offering prayers here. And this is Prabhupada's summary study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto. Kṛṣṇa. Okay, we'll backtrack a little bit. All kinds of weapons have been released by Lord Shiva to protect his devotee Bāṇāsura. The Narayana defeated the Shiva-jvara. The Narayana being excessive cold, defeated Lord Shiva's excessive heat weapon. And the Shiva-jvara offered beautiful prayers. And Kṛṣṇa promised him protection because he surrendered. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. Now, see, where are we? Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. Lord Shiva's offering prayers. Okay, it looks like when Bāṇāsura saw that the Shiva-jvara, the ultimate weapon of Lord Shiva, could not protect him, he approached Kṛṣṇa directly, person to person. Bāṇāsura with his 1,000-armed benediction. In the meantime, Bāṇāsura somehow or other recovered from his setbacks, lost his army, Lord Shiva couldn't protect him, and there he was, all alone on the battlefield, standing before Kṛṣṇa in an angry mood. With rejuvenated energy, returned to fight. This time Bāṇāsura appeared before Lord Kṛṣṇa, who was seated on his chariot with different kinds of weapons in his 1,000 hands. Bāṇāsura appeared before Lord Kṛṣṇa. Bāṇāsura had different kinds of weapons in his 1,000 hands. Bāṇāsura was very much agitated. He began to splash his different weapons like torrents of rain upon the body of Lord Kṛṣṇa. When Lord Kṛṣṇa saw the weapons of Bāṇāsura coming at him like water coming out of a strainer, he took his sharp-edged Sudarshan disc and began to cut off the demon's 1,000 hands, one after another. So this Sudarshan is a personality. It's not like just some metal thing that, somebody could make in a blacksmith shop, a metalworking shop. It's actually a personality, Sudarshan. And Sudarshan began to cut off the demon's 1,000 hands, one after another, just as a gardener trims the twigs of a tree with sharp cutters. When Lord Shiva saw that his devotee Bāṇāsura could not be saved, even in his presence, he came to his senses and personally came before Lord Kṛṣṇa and began to pacify him by offering the following prayers. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa. Lord Shiva said, "My dear Lord, you are the worshipful object of the Vedic hymns. One who does not know you considers the impersonal Brahmajyoti to be the ultimate supreme absolute truth, without any knowledge that you are existing behind your spiritual effulgence in your eternal abode." We read this yesterday, but hey, Hare Kṛṣṇa. We're going to read it again. My dear Lord, you are therefore called Param Brahman. This word Param Brahman has been used in the Bhagavad Gita to identify you. So everything spiritual, everything is Brahman. Everything, material, spiritual, Brahman. That's how Kṛṣṇa pervades everything. All-pervading Brahman. But he is the source of the Brahman. And he is behind the Brahman. Brahman is emanating from him. It's his effulgent rays, spiritual rays. He's called Param Brahman. The impersonalists don't get that far. They just get to the point of everything's spiritual. They don't make any differentiation that there's a source or that there are activities or personalities or forms. They consider all of that illusory. Saintly persons who have completely cleansed their hearts of all material contamination can realize your transcendental form. Although you are all-pervading like the sky, unaffected by any material thing. Only devotees can realize you and no one else. That is the spirit of devotion. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am standing before you. What is that undivided? Undivided. It sounds like undifferentiated, but I don't know. Let me take a look here. Undivided devotional service. Can I be understood as I am standing before you? Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa. If somebody can beat me to it, that would be great. Undivided. How to understand that in that verse, undivided devotional service. Undivided? Does it mean undeviated? Focused? Must mean focused. Not branched out in any way. Like a tree, the trunk is undivided and then it divides into branches. Must be like that. Well, let's take a look what undivided means. Undivided devotional service. Kṛṣṇa. That's what Prabhupada wants. He wants undivided ISKCON. Definition. Not separated into parts or pieces, existing as a simple whole. undivided, like what happened in the Civil War. They wanted to divide the nation. Undivided attention, undivided, the meaning, undivided. Concentrated on or devoted completely to one object. Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Concentrated on or devoted completely to one object. Okay. Only devotees can realize you. No one else. In the impersonalist conception of your supreme existence, the sky, okay, so this was a description of the universal form. And this impersonalist conception, it is simply a conception. It's kind of like superimposed conception. The impersonalist, who cannot access Kṛṣṇa through devotion, when they see the things of the creation, they impose this conception of Kṛṣṇa on the creation. It's a way for them to try to, because it's something intellectual. It's not achieved through devotional realization. It's still that intellectual platform of trying to, on their own power, conceive of. So, no one else. Only devotee can actually realize Kṛṣṇa. The impersonalists conceive your supreme existence. And the way they do it is, the sky is your navel, the fire is your mouth, the water is your semen, the heavenly planets are your head, all directions are your ears, the earthy planet your lotus feet, the moon is your mind, and the sun is your eye. Then Lord Shiva says, as far as I am concerned, I act as your ego, your sense of self. The ocean is your abdomen, and the king of heaven, Indra, is your arm. Trees and planets are the hairs of your body. The cloud is the hair of your head, and Lord Brahma is your intelligence. All the great progenitors known as Prajapatis are your symbolic representatives, and religion is your heart. The impersonalist feature of your supreme body is conceived of in this way. But you are ultimately the supreme person. The impersonal feature of your supreme body is only a small expansion of your energy. You are likened to the original fire, and the expansions are your light and heat. You don't actually have access to Kṛṣṇa, but it's a kind of an expansion, a little glimpse, a little glimmer. Lord Shiva continued, my dear Lord, although you are manifested universally, different parts of the universe are the different parts of your body. And by your inconceivable potency, you can simultaneously be both localized and universal. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare. In the Brahma Samhita, we also find it stated that although you are always remain in your abode, Goloka Vrindavan, you are nevertheless present everywhere. So I remember reading this yesterday, and it was like Lord Shiva is quoting the Brahma Samhita, and then he quotes the Bhagavad Gita too. Interesting. We tend to think of, well, Prabhupada just gave us those, they've only been here for like 50 years. No. They were here around the time whenever this battle took place, which was like 5,000 years ago. Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, the song of God was sung to Vivaswan like millenniums ago and was lost, and that's why it was re-spoken by Krishna to Arjuna on the battlefield. So These things have been around a while. Bāṇāsura has been here since the creation of the universe. It's the prayers Lord Brahma offered before he created the universe when he had his darshan with the Lord. So, okay. Hare Kṛṣṇa. So, Lord Shiva is quoting the Brahma Samhita, which was composed by his father, Lord Brahma. In the Brahma Samhita, we also find it stated that although you always remain in your abode, Goloka Vrindavan, you are nevertheless present everywhere. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, you appear to protect the devotees, which indicates good fortune for all the universe. Prabhupada brings us so directly in contact with Lord Shiva here. We're hearing his prayers in a way that we can hear them. It's like amazing how Prabhupada does this. All of the demigods are directly different affairs of the universe by your grace. All the demigods are directing different affairs of the universe by your grace only. Thus, the 7 upper planetary systems are being maintained by your grace. At the end of this creation, all manifestations of your energies, whether in the shape of demigods, human beings, or lower animals, enter into you, and all immediate and remote causes of cosmic manifestation rest in you, without distinctive features of existence. So Lord Shiva is having these realizations, and he's offering these prayers. He's realizing this, and this is how he's perceiving Kṛṣṇa, this magnificence of Kṛṣṇa. Ultimately, there's no possibility of distinction between yourself and any other thing on any equal level with you or subordinate to you. You are simultaneously the cause of this cosmic manifestation and its ingredients as well. You are the supreme whole, one without a second. In the phenomenal manifestation, there are 3 stages. So that's the material manifestation. The stage of consciousness, the stage of semi-consciousness in dreaming, and the stage of unconscious. But your lordship is transcendental to all these different material stages of existence. You exist, therefore, in a 4th dimension. You exist in a 4th dimension. Kṛṣṇa. And your appearance and disappearance do not depend on anything beyond yourself. You are the supreme cause of everything, but for yourself, there is no cause. You yourself cause your own appearance and disappearance. Despite your transcendental position, my Lord, in order to show your 6 opulences and advertise your transcendental qualities, you have appeared in your different incarnations. Fish, tortoise, boar, Shinga, Keshava, etc. by your personal manifestation. And you have appeared as different living entities by your separated manifestations. By your personal manifestation, you do these incarnations, and you have appeared as different living entities, like us, as your separated manifestations. We are part of Kṛṣṇa. Yes, we are Kṛṣṇa. Little ones, little manifestations of Kṛṣṇa's spiritual energy, little jivas. So he manifests personally, and then he also manifests us. We're manifestations of Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. By your internal potency, you appear as the different incarnations of Vishnu, and by your external potency, you appear as the phenomenal world. External potency, you appear as the phenomenal world, the material elements. So we're the marginal manifestations of Kṛṣṇa. We can go either way. We can go into the darkness, and reflections and the shadows, and pleasure-seeking as we are, try to latch on to something in there to give us some juice, but there's no substance, and we're constantly frustrated. Or we can turn toward the light, and in the spirit of devotion and service, get the nectar. Get the download. Plug in, get the download. Over here, you got a battery and it runs out. Then you have to get a new battery and then that runs out. But here, you're plugged in. My Lord, Lord Shiva continues. Wow. Here we go. Oh my goodness. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm not saying this out of some sense of false pride, but I am so right on. How do I know? Because this next paragraph tells me so. My dear Lord, only by your mercy and grace can the living entity get the human form of life, which is a chance to get out of the material condition of material existence. However, a person who possesses a human body, but who cannot bring the senses under control, is carried away by the waves of sensual enjoyment. As such, he cannot take shelter of your lotus feet and thus engage in your devotional service. The life of such a person is very unfortunate, and anyone living such a life of darkness is certainly cheating himself and cheating others also. Therefore, human society without Kṛṣṇa consciousness is a society of cheaters and the cheated. Kṛṣṇa. That's that life of darkness. So here Prabhupada expands that out. It's not just the living entity who trundles off into the darkness to try to enjoy sense gratification, the shadows and the reflections, but he's causing trouble for others also. He's cheating others. Because he's in ignorance, they're coming in contact with him, they remain in ignorance, and there's cheating going on. You're cheating others. That's why Lord Chaitanya says, wherever you go, whoever you meet, you have to be in Kṛṣṇa consciousness to do this. Wherever you go, whoever you meet, tell them about Kṛṣṇa. Krishna's instructions. Remain in Kṛṣṇa consciousness wherever you go, whoever you meet, and naturally you'll be able to share something of Kṛṣṇa with others. And you won't be a cheater. Because that's actually, cheating others is violence. Just like in the laws of the state, if somebody cheats somebody out of their money or their home or their wife or husband or something, they're punishable. They cheated someone out of what belonged rightfully, it was their quota. They cheated them out of it. They stole it or they lied or whatever they did. It's punishable. Because, Upanishad, everyone has a quota. And a person can live peacefully in this world for hundreds of years with the opportunity for making spiritual advancement if they just accept what is their quota and don't try to cheat others. So even on that level, cheating is punishable. So what to speak of on the spiritual level? Someone in darkness like that, whose life is simply centered around their selfish desires for satisfying their own, no matter what, gratification. And if you look at it in terms of sex, which I believe when Prabhupada said material sense gratification, he was in a very gentlemanly way referring to sex, uncontrolled sexual indulgence. I believe when it branches out from that, yeah, control the tongue, what you eat, yeah, like that. But that's the granddaddy, that's the big one. And I believe when he was saying material sense gratification, he was referring to that in a very gentlemanly way. So for that to take place, someone has to cheat someone else. Someone has these ravenous desires for sexual pleasure. They're going to have to cheat a partner to get what they want. Right? I mean, that's one way to look at it. I mean, the jiva soul, the minds of the conditioned souls are very creative, but basically, if you look at it that way, you see, to get what I want, I have to cheat you. I have to get you to focus on me so I can enjoy. Like, I love you, I love you. No, I don't love you. I love how you make me feel when I'm exploiting you. That's what I love. Not you. Hare Kṛṣṇa. So that's punishable. That's punishable. That's cheating and cheaters. Cheaters and cheating. One partner after another, throw them away. One partner after another, throw them away. I'm not getting what I want, throw them away. Don't even bother going through the legal system. Just go find somebody and do something. Kṛṣṇa. So, that's a life of darkness. When we get a higher taste, that stops. It stops. There's no taste for it, no desire for it, it's gone. Sounds inconceivable, doesn't it? But with the right spirit, the spirit of love of God, it goes. Because it's a higher taste. You have to cheat anyone to get a little sense gratification. It stops. You don't have to cheat yourself. People cheat themselves to get sense gratification. You don't have to cheat yourself. You don't have to cheat anyone. Because you connect in the proper spirit with the personality of Godhead. Hey, listen to that crazy old lady over there. She's off her rocker. No, she's on her rocker. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa. She's rocking. Kṛṣṇa. You see everything in relationship to Kṛṣṇa. Nothing separate. Lord Shiva, he's continuing here. My Lord, you are actually the dearmost supersoul of all living entities and the supreme controller of everything. The supreme being who is always, the human being who is always illusioned, is afraid of ultimate death. Man who is simply attached to sensual enjoyment voluntarily accepts miserable material existence and wanders after the will of the wisp for sense pleasure. Yeah, when Prabhupada says sensual enjoyment, yeah, eating, right, yeah, drinking, yeah, right, but he's talking, you can put in there sex life, you can put that in there, because that's the big one. A man who is simply attached to sense enjoyment, eating, drinking, smoking, sex life, voluntarily accepts miserable material existence and wanders after the will of the wisp of sense pleasure. He is certainly the most foolish man For he drinks poison and puts aside the nectar. He drinks poison over here in the darkness and puts aside the nectar. My dear Lord, all the demigods, including myself, Lord Brahma, his father, as well as great saintly persons and sages, have cleansed their hearts of this material attachment. They have who have cleansed their hearts. By your grace, wholeheartedly taking shelter of your lotus feet. Because really that's the only way to cleanse your heart completely. As Krishna says, what can repression accomplish? Externally, one may refrain from sensual activities, but it still remains in the heart. Until it's purged from the heart completely, the desire for sense gratification remains. So the only way to do that is to get this higher taste of a loving, ecstatic relationship with Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the only way to do it. But those who are practicing controlling the senses, they have an opportunity to do that. But unless they do that, they won't be able to maintain that. Just like the impersonalist can't maintain that impersonal position eternally, because it's the nature of the soul has desires. So similarly, to be sense-controlled without attaching to the spiritual form of Kṛṣṇa, and they can't maintain that. They can't maintain it. Wholeheartedly taken shelter of your lotus feet. We have all taken shelter of you, because we have accepted you as the Supreme Lord and dearmost life and soul of all of us. You are the original cause of this cosmic manifestation. You are its supreme maintainer, and you are the cause of its dissolution also. Which is interesting because we usually think of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva as kind of like separate living entities, which they are. They're incarnations, they're guna avatars. Are they guna? Yeah. They're incarnations of the Lord for the specific purpose of managing the affairs of the material world, such as creation, maintenance, and dissolution. And Lord Shiva himself is the incarnation of Kṛṣṇa, or the manifestation of Kṛṣṇa, that is in charge of dissolution. But here he's saying, you are the original cause of the cosmic manifestation. You are its supreme maintainer. You are the cause of its dissolution also. You are equal to everyone. So you are the cause, the original cause. We're like the secondary. Lord Brahma is very often referred to as the secondary creator, like the engineer. The original creator is Kṛṣṇa. You are the supreme worshipful object for every one of us. My dear Lord, let us always be engaged in your transcendental loving service so that we may get free from this material entanglement. That's interesting. Transcendental loving service. Lord Shiva is in charge of the mode of ignorance. And when he says your transcendental loving service, we're talking about devotional service. We're talking about hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping, serving the lotus feet, making friends with, carrying out the orders, and offering everything one has in their possession for the service of Kṛṣṇa. So his service, like Arjuna, his service was to fight as a soldier. That's within his material occupation. But higher than that was his service, and that was his conflict too, was that in order to do my material service, I would have to make offense to everyone, and surely I would go to hell for killing my teachers, my family members. I can't do my service. So Kṛṣṇa took him to a higher level and said, well, that's on the material plane. He said, on the spiritual plane, your service is to please me. And this is what I'm asking you to do. So his devotion was to carry out the orders of Kṛṣṇa. And that was a higher principle. So Lord Shiva, he's engaged in dealing with the mode of ignorance, like Arjuna was engaged in fighting on the battlefield. But the higher principle, which Lord Shiva, I believe, is referring to here, transcendental loving service, let me always engage in your transcendental service, means let me always hear and chant and remember and worship you and serve you like that, which is what he's doing right here by offering these prayers. Anyway, that's what I see there. Lastly, Lord Shiva, he's winding this up. Lastly, my Lord, I may inform you that this Bāṇāsura is very dear to me. He has rendered very valuable service unto me. Therefore, I want to see him always happy. Being pleased with him, I gave him the assurance of safety. I pray to you, my Lord, that you were pleased upon his forefathers, King Prahlad, Bali Maharaj. You will also be pleased with him. He makes an appeal. Lord, see, that falls perfectly in line because Lord Shiva is the topmost Vaishnava. And now he's appealing to the Lord. He was fighting him, but then no, this doesn't work. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Now he's appealing to the Lord in his position as the Vaishnava. And the Vaishnava is appealing to the Lord on behalf of someone who has taken shelter of him, even though he's got a lot of faults. See, the Vaishnava, Lord Shiva, the Vaishnava now, he's had his realizations, he's offered his prayer, he's prayed for eternal, transcendental, loving service, and now he's asking, as a Vaishnava, on behalf of someone who has taken shelter of him, even though the person's has many faults. And he refers to his good ancestry, which always helps. He's given a few references there. He's a descendant of Bali Maharaj, who was your devotee, and he's a descendant of Prahlad, who's your devotee. In Kṛṣṇa. So let's see what Kṛṣṇa does with that. After hearing Lord Shiva's prayer, Lord Kṛṣṇa addressed him also as Lord and said, my dear Lord Shiva, I accept your statements, and your desire for Bāṇāsura is also accepted by me. I know that this Bāṇāsura is the son of Bali Maharaj, and as such I cannot kill him, because that is my promise. I gave a benediction to King Prahlad that all the demons who would appear in his family would never be killed by me. I'm not sure, is that a benediction? Because when a demon is killed by Kṛṣṇa, he gets liberation. I don't know, is that a benediction? Anyway, he gave that benediction, it would never be killed by me. Therefore, without killing this Bāṇāsura, I have simply cut off his arms to deprive him of his false prestige. I cut him down to size. The large number of soldiers which he was maintaining became a burden on this earth. I've killed them also, in order to minimize the burden. Now, he has 4 remaining arms, and he will remain immortal, without being affected by the material pains and pleasures. I know that he is one of the chief devotees of your Lordship, so you can now rest assured that henceforward he need have no fear from anything. Wow, that's what Lord Shiva can do for someone who takes shelter of him. That's how Lord Shiva. Wow. Kṛṣṇa. When Bāṇāsura was benedicted by Lord Kṛṣṇa in this way, he came before the Lord and bowed down before him, touching his head to the earth. He immediately arranged to bring Aniruddha, along with his daughter Usha, seated on a nice chariot, and presented them before Lord Kṛṣṇa. After this, Lord Kṛṣṇa took charge of Aniruddha and Usha, who had become very opulent materially because of the blessing of Lord Shiva. Thus, keeping forward a division of one Akshahini of soldiers, Kṛṣṇa began to proceed toward Dwarka. Yeah, so this whole fight was like because of a union. It's kind of like a marriage, when these Kshatriyas, marriages, was always a lot of fighting going on in a marriage. It wasn't exactly like a Polish wedding where they all get drunk and sing and dance and howl. It was more like they start to fight because somebody was always unhappy about the marriage. So all this fighting went on because of the union of Aniruddha and Usha. In the meantime, so Kṛṣṇa took Aniruddha and Usha. In the meantime, all the people of Dwarka, having received the news that Lord Kṛṣṇa was returning with Aniruddha and Usha in great opulence, decorated every corner of the city with flags, festoons, and garlands. All the big roads and crossroads were carefully cleansed and sprinkled with sandalwood pulp mixed with water. Everywhere there was the flavor of sandalwood. All the citizens, accompanied by their friends and relatives, welcomed Lord Kṛṣṇa with great pomp and jubilation. They decorated every corner of the city. Sandalwood pulp, the fragrance of sandal pulp was everywhere. At that time there was a tumultuous vibration of conch shells and drums and bugles to receive the Lord. In this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa, entered his capital city, Dwarka. So, a couple more paragraphs. Kṛṣṇa, Sukadeva Goswami assured King Parikshit that the narration of the fight between Lord Shiva and Lord Kṛṣṇa is not at all inauspicious, like ordinary fights. On the contrary, if one remembers the narration of this fight between Lord Kṛṣṇa and Lord Shiva in the morning, and takes pleasure in the victory of Lord Kṛṣṇa, he will never experience defeat anywhere in his struggle of life. The episode of Bāṇāsura's fighting with Kṛṣṇa it's interesting. This is Sukadeva Goswami's narration. He assured King Parikshit that this narration was not an ordinary fight, and that on the contrary, if anyone hears the narration, that's like us. How did Sukadeva Goswami know that we would be hearing this 5,000 years later? How did he know? If anyone hears, that's us, anyone, hears this in the morning and takes pleasure in the victory of Lord Kṛṣṇa, he will never experience defeat anywhere in his struggle of life. So we have that blessing from Sukadeva Goswami. We have that blessing. Hare Kṛṣṇa. The episode of Bāṇāsura's fighting with Kṛṣṇa, and later on being saved by the grace of Lord Shiva, is confirmation of the statement in the Bhagavad Gita that the worshippers of demigods cannot achieve any benediction without being sanctioned by the Supreme Lord Kṛṣṇa. Okay, so that's how Lord Shiva gave the benediction to Bāṇāsura. It was by the mercy of Kṛṣṇa. And that doesn't hold just for that benediction. It means any benediction. Cannot achieve any benediction. So that means the benediction of the 1,000 arms was sanctioned by Lord Kṛṣṇa. And the benediction of the Nagapas, which he used against Aniruddha, the snake news, which was given to him by Lord Shiva, was also sanctioned by Lord Kṛṣṇa. Because Lord Shiva couldn't have done that without the sanction. Here, in this narration, we find that although Bāṇāsura was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, when he faced death by Kṛṣṇa, Lord Shiva was not able to save him. But Lord Shiva appealed to Kṛṣṇa to save his devotee, and it was thus sanctioned by the Lord. Well, wait a minute. Kṛṣṇa says, I can't kill Bāṇāsura. So, Kṛṣṇa said previously he couldn't kill Bāṇāsura because he had promised Prahlād in Bali. He wouldn't kill any of the demons in his. But here he says he was faced with death. In other words, he was threatened with death. Maybe he didn't know that Kṛṣṇa couldn't actually kill him. After all, he just cut off 996 arms. I mean, he could kill him, right? As far as Bāṇāsura knows. And then Shiva couldn't stop him. But there was a little secret behind there that Kṛṣṇa couldn't kill him. But Lord Shiva appealed to Kṛṣṇa to save his devotee, and that was sanctioned by the Lord. So they did the right thing, even though Kṛṣṇa couldn't kill him, because of his promise. This is the position of Lord Kṛṣṇa. The exact words used in this connection in Bhagavad Gita are Mayaiva Vihitan Hitan. This means that without the sanction of the Supreme Lord, no demigod can award any benediction to the worshipper. There's so many twists and turns to Kṛṣṇa's antics. And none of it is what it appears to be. Kṛṣṇa. And there's multiple levels and depths of realizations. And Kṛṣṇa. And it just goes on eternally. Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Of course, the Prabhupada. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Thank you.